Years passed, and their father also passed on with it. When the will was read, Mark learned that Elijah had inherited the church along with a substantial portion of their father's life insurance policy. The news filled him with anger and jealousy. To Mark, it proved that all those years spent trying to become his father's favored son had been wasted. His ambition, identity, and entire way of life had revolved around earning that approval, yet in the end, his younger brother received everything he had spent his life pursuing. A few days after learning about the will, Mark called Elijah and invited him to lunch to discuss their father's passing and how they were both coping with the loss. Their conversation started light as they began reminiscing about their father, laughing about both the good and bad memories they had of him. They recalled how furious he would become whenever he caught them staying up late playing video games on Saturday nights instead of getting enough sleep before church. "You were such a bad influence," Elijah said with a laugh. "You made it easy for me," Mark replied. "Remember when Dad found the Playboy magazine? You hid under the bed," Mark said with a grin. "Yeah. And you denied it was yours, which got me grounded for weeks," Elijah replied with a chuckle. "Yeah, because we were both using it," Mark responded. The two brothers burst into laughter. "I'm glad we've both done well for ourselves and can still talk like this, even though a lot has changed between us," Elijah said. "Yeah, me too," Mark replied calmly. "But we should also think about how we can work together moving forward. I'm sure Dad would have wanted that." "What do you mean?" Elijah asked. "I know you're in charge of the ministry now, and you've inherited a large portion of Dad's life insurance policy. You can keep the money. All I want, brother, is for you to give me leadership of the church." Elijah chuckled and raised an eyebrow. "Really? Why?" "Come on, bro. With all the time, effort, and money I've invested into the church, it's only fair that I get a piece of it," Mark said sternly. "Oh, you can absolutely become a minister," Elijah replied. "But being the leader, I don't know how that's supposed to work between us." "Being a minister under you?" Mark asked, his face tightening. "What's wrong with that? You said you wanted us to move forward together. Why don't you become a permanent minister and we can work on projects that help advance both the church and the gospel?" "By projects, you mean bringing more homeless people with serious addiction issues into the church?" Mark replied, his voice tense. "Do you really think those kinds of people are what we need to move the church forward?" "Well, if that's how you want to put it," Elijah replied with an awkward smile, "but those are exactly the people Christ came to die for." "Oh please, spare me the Bible stories. Do you see the times we're living in?" Mark said loudly, drawing the attention of nearby diners. "You're going to run Dad's life's work into the ground if you keep thinking like that. This is exactly why you can't lead the church." "I don't want to argue with you like this in public, bro," Elijah said, trying to calm him down. "Why don't we talk about this another time? Let's not ruin our memories of Dad by going back and forth over something that doesn't matter." "Doesn't matter?" Mark scoffed. "I'm done here." He signaled for the server to bring the bill. After that lunch, Mark's relationship with Elijah deteriorated rapidly. They had never been particularly close, but they had always maintained a certain level of respect for one another. Now, with Elijah refusing to hand over leadership of the church, Mark viewed him as an obstacle, someone who had taken everything he had spent his life trying to earn. This was no longer just about the church. It was about their father's approval, and Elijah had received it all. Mark had never been the type of person to quietly watch everything he had worked for slip away. He couldn't stand the thought of Elijah turning the church into what he saw as a shelter home. So he vowed to take it back. The church, the approval, even the insurance money. Not because he needed the money, he was already wealthy enough, but because he wanted Elijah to know that he deserved none of it. The fastest way to reclaim everything was to remove Elijah from the picture. But Mark wasn't willing to get his own hands dirty. Instead, he decided to use one of the very people Elijah spent his life helping. Through contacts he discovered online, Mark eventually hired a homeless man with a long history of burglary, assault, gun violence, and drug abuse. The job was simple: track Elijah during one of his evening walks. Elijah often walked alone along quiet trails, reflecting on life and admiring the sunset. That was where it would happen. When the day finally came, the homeless man did exactly as instructed. Approaching from behind, he raised a knife and moved to strike. At the last moment, Elijah turned. He grabbed the man's arm and screamed for help. The attacker immediately swung with his free hand, landing a powerful blow that sent Elijah crashing to the ground unconscious. As the man raised the knife again, preparing to finish the job, the sound of an approaching Ram truck echoed down the trail. Startled, he quickly fled into the woods and disappeared among the trees.